And this will be fun. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to go through our active and retired Dream Team favorites. Alongside Matthew Frizzell, I'm Nate Lucas. Johnny Rowe going to join us for this segment. We founded this idea on Wednesday. We've compiled our list. We're ready to go. Joining us at 10:30 will be Mark Borichter from the Kansas City Chiefs. He does some work with 810 Kansas City up in Chiefs Kingdom country. So let's just get right to it. So we said, all right, we're going to have our dream teams for both active and retired. Actually, we didn't even know what the ground rules were on Wednesday. I just said, think about your favorite players, think about what's going to make your best team, and let's make our teams and see how they compare. So last night, we hop on the phone, Johnny, and we went through our teams, and I kid you not, like 6 out of 9 were identical?
Right, yeah. So, yeah, we just, like you said, we just did the retired, and it was funny. We kind of just went back and forth, and we'd say these names, and, it's obvious who some of these best players, are. Where you can get some more debate is with, like, active, but then we started talking about some of the stats that some of these guys have, and we'll share these with you. But it's kind of obvious who the best players are.
Okay, one asterisk on this list. These are players that we have become familiar with. So if you're sitting there and you watched a guy play in the 60s or 70s and you're wondering why he's not on our list, because I don't think it's fair for me to have to, decide between a guy I never saw play versus a guy I did see play. So these are going to be familiar names, I think, even on our retired list. So let's just start and with our active catcher, and we'll go active catcher, retired catcher. I think that's the appropriate way to do it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so active catcher. You're going to hear a lot of bias in some of my picks. We already know this. But I went Yadier Molina. He's a 9-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champ, 9-time Gold Glove. I think the way that he handles a pitching staff is unreal. His competitiveness is off the charts. I'm going Molina.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good pick. And a guy that I definitely thought of. And it's hard, what factors you consider. Like, I just love Yadi's fire behind the plate and how, he's been in the league for how many years did you say?
16, 17, something along those lines.
And every day he's fired up to get behind the plate. So I love that. My active catcher is a guy who's younger, a guy who started out in Florida with with Miami Marlins, but now is on the Phillies, and JT Realmuto. I think he's kind of the future for the catcher position, a do-it-all guy who does have that fire to get behind the plate and hits in the middle of the order. So Realmuto is mine.
All right. Well, you and Frizz would be on point there because he went Realmuto is on his active fantasy team as well. From a retired standpoint, I went Mike Piazza. I didn't realize that Piazza was a 62nd round draft choice. I didn't know that he quit the game briefly while in the minors. And then he comes back. He's the 1993 Rookie of the Year. In 97, as a catcher, he had 201 hits. That's the most ever by a player whose primary position was catcher. And he finished with over 1,350 RBIs, which is good for 4th all-time for catchers.
Yeah, that's insane. And I considered going with Mike Piazza, a guy who, for the catcher position, did a lot of things at the plate that we really had never seen. A likable guy, cool last name. He had it all, man. That guy is sick, and definitely one that I consider.
The handlebar stash.
Yes, just timeless. I wish my wife probably wouldn't let me do that, but, but he wasn't really caring about all that stuff. So I went with Pudge. Ivan Rodriguez, maybe doesn't have as, flashy of the offensive numbers, but a guy 14-time All-Star, 13 Gold Gloves, and still 7 Silver Sluggers, career 296 batting average, and did get a World Series in 03 with the Marlins, and he was the NLCS MVP, 313 with 3 home runs and 17 RBIs in that series. A guy who almost had 3,000 hits, and I think all around Pudge would be a great choice there for my team.
Pudge is on. You and Frizz are 2 for 2 together. First base active. Now, this is where you got to look at maybe what he's done. And I'm going Albert Pujols. What he did in St. Louis was unprecedented, put together ridiculous stats. I know you've got some, but I'm going Pujols at my active first baseman.
Couldn't agree more. And, this guy was easily the best player on the freaking planet when he was in St. Louis, and it wasn't even close. 3-time NL MVP, Currently has 3,202 hits, career 300 batting average, 10-time All-Star, 2 Gold Gloves, 6 Silver Sluggers, 2-time World Series champ. I could keep going. And the thing that people don't talk about that much with Albert, right? Like I said, 2 Gold Gloves. The guy's he was a hell of a first baseman, right? So he raked and could play the field, best player ever. And the cool thing is, or best player at first base. Cool thing is that he went to Maple Woods Community College up in Kansas City, so that's kind of cool too.
Absolutely. Retired first baseman. I'm going McGwire. Okay?
Yeah.
The guy hit 70 home runs in 1 year.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I want that guy in my lineup. I think Mark McGwire should be in the Hall of Fame. I've said this. I said this on Wednesday that if Sosa and McGwire saved the game in the fashion in which they did, then I think that alone should put them in the Hall of Fame. But Mark McGwire, he had tremendous power. He was more of a pure hitter than he gets credit for because he hit so many home runs. He did strike out a lot, but he's my retired first baseman I'm going with.
All right, so mine is more recent. Definitely have some of my personal biases because I like the way he played, and just overall, it's David Ortiz, Big Papi. So a guy, obviously played a lot of DH, but I think he would still be considered there at first base. 10-time All-Star, World Series MVP, 6 Silver Sluggers, and a 3-time champion with Boston. So, if you look at 525 home runs and 1,700 RBIs, I mean, you can't argue with that. So that's Big Papi for me.
Yeah, I can't have Big Papi on my list.
Yeah.
What he did to the Cardinals in 2013, I could just never put him on my list.
Yeah.
Second base. This is an interesting position. When you look back at it, there hasn't been a whole lot of great second basemen. I think starting, you can probably look at Joe Morgan, but again, I just missed that window, but very talented player in the Hall of Fame. But I went an active second baseman. I went DJ LeMahieu. I really grappled with this because Whit Merrifield certainly would be a guy that was second on my list. But LeMahieu, I feel like he brings some pop. He hits for average. I loved what he did with the Yankees last year, and I wanted the Cardinals to sign him in the offseason. They didn't, and he turned out to have a huge year for New York.
Same thing with me, the two that I was deliberating. Obviously, I went with Whit Merrifield for mine, big Royals fan. So, agree with you, though, LeMahieu rakes, and that guy's sick. But Whit Merrifield for me, like a guy that I could have put in my top 3 for the outfield, too, a guy who can play essentially every position. He's just a dirt bag. The guy is awesome. He can play wherever you want. And he can hit wherever you want. So easy pick for me there. And I agree with you on second base though, because is it safe to say that like a lot of players are not brought up as second baseman? It's like if you don't make it as a shortstop, then they put you over at second base.
I think if you're undersized to play short, you can't cover the range. You go play second, and you kind of get marked as an infielder. You're sort of looking for a position. Because now, so many times, you can't just afford to have a guy play one position. Like, you better be able to play multiple positions and bring a lot of gloves and be versatile. So, LeMahieu's mine. Whit's a great pick. I really think they're neck and neck. I didn't, study each line. So, I think it's apples and oranges there. All-time second baseman, I changed mine. I went Roberto Alomar Jr., 2-time World Series champ, back-to-back with the Blue Jays in 92-93. Listen to some of the combos he formed over his career. With Cal Ripken Jr. with the Orioles, which they went to the ALCS in 96 and 97. Then with Omar Vizquel in Cleveland. He had 99 hits. In 99, he hit 323 with 24 homers, 120 RBIs, 37 steals. He had multiple years with those similar lines. I went Roberto Alomar Jr. I know he hung on way too long, but
you see, you're talking about stuff in 1992 and 93. See, I wasn't even born yet. I was 1994, so you have a little leg up on me there. So that's why I went.
I was 2, but yeah.
Yeah, for second base, I went Craig Biggio. Played 14 years at second base, over 3,000 hits. But the thing with him was that 7-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove, and 5 Silver Sluggers. So just all around awesome player. Really, if a guy gets 3,000 hits, that kind of just seals the argument there for me. But then he also stole 414 bags. So all around, great player with Biggio, but just didn't get, doesn't have the postseason accolades that you'd like, but good for me.
Active third baseman. We're on the same page. Everybody is. Nolan Arenado. He's the best defensive third baseman I've ever watched. His love of the game, I think, is what puts him on top of everyone's charts, but the guy rakes. I don't think it's just a fluke because he plays at Coors Field. I think he's a really talented player, and I think he's the best third baseman that I've ever seen. And when I hear a guy like Mike Shannon, who's been around this game for a long time, say this guy might be the best ever, and he's seen a lot of good third basemen, that's means something.
Well, when we did the little dry run last night, and for everyone listening, we didn't go through everything. We kind of just did like a little skeleton of it, but we both, talked about our third base pick, and we prefaced, I was thinking kind of differently here, blah, blah, and we both picked Arenado as our best of all time.
Yeah.
So, some people might think I would go with George Brett here, but he retired in 93, so I wasn't born yet. And so, yeah, Arenado is definitely the pick. 5-time All-Star already, 7 Gold Gloves, 3 Platinum Gloves already. So already 3 times he's been the best defensive player in all of baseball. Can't fault that pick at all. He's the best.
The guy makes plays at third base that you just dream of, right? Diving beyond the bag at third base, in foul territory. He's got a rocket. He can charge on bunt attempts. He's just a really good player. I think he's a gamer. I hope the Cardinals go get him, too. He'd look great in Cardinal red. Your all-time third baseman is whom?
You asking me first this time.
Let me change it up.
Yeah, so had to change it after the Arenado thing. I went with Larry Jones, Chipper. And, I like the switch hitting aspect. I like a lot of things just about Chipper Jones. I think he's just a cool dude, but also has the numbers there to back it up. The only thing that's on the downside is that with me being brought up on Royals baseball, I didn't get to see much of him just because the Braves and Royals don't play very often.
I went Alex Rodriguez. I know he's not in the Hall. I know his career is tarnished because of the steroids, but this guy, when he was late 90s with the Mariners, what he and Ken Griffey did to the game and bring on a new generation of fans, A-Rod and Griffey were like, Batman and Robin, man. And then, A-Rod goes on to sign like 14 other mega $300 million contracts. I think he's kind of helped his image by getting back on MLB Sunday Night Baseball and doing that broadcast. I'm going A-Rod for my all-time third baseman, but no shame. My second pick was Chipper Jones. And ironically, those two don't get along very well.
I didn't know that.
They got a history. They got a feud. Shortstop. Your active shortstop. Who you rolling with?
Yeah. Here's where I put A-Rod. So I think we can put, that's fine. You can put him in both spots, but
But active?
Oh, you said active. Sorry.
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah. Active shortstop. Here's where I have a lot of my bias. I'm keeping the Kansas City Royals thing going. I don't think that there's a shortstop with more upside right now than Adalberto Mondesi. Adalberto Mondesi is a switch-hitting shortstop, and he's a 5-tool player. If he can just put it together, this guy is going to take the league by storm and has the tools to be an MVP candidate. Adalberto Mondesi is my shortstop.
I went Javi Baez. Get to see this guy a lot with the Cards and Cubs playing a whole bunch of games. And Baez just has a knack for this game of baseball that wins. He's tremendous talent. I think even looking back at what he did for that Puerto Rico team in the World Baseball Classic, this guy is a tremendous talent, and he's really good. He does everything really well, and that's my pick. So he's my active shortstop. Frizz had Francisco Lindor. That's an excellent pick, but Javi Baez would be mine. So you're going A-Rod on your retired list at short, which is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, and let the cat out of the bag early there. But, dude, 696 home runs. I mean, 3,115 hits. And a World Series champion. So, it's hard. Some people might think differently for him, but I think A-Rod took his lumps, and he's got to be on there for me.
I'm going the captain, Derek Jeter. In 158 postseason games, which is the equivalent to almost an additional year, he hit 308 with 111 runs scored, 200 hits, 32 doubles, 20 homers. He finished his career with 3,465 hits, 1,923 runs scored, and he had almost 49. He had more than 4,900 total bases. I don't have to explain why Derek Jeter's my pick.
Nope.
It's short. All right, moving to the outfield. Let's just go with your first outfield position. Or do you want to do them all three? Why don't you do three active?
Okay, yes, yeah. We'll tell everybody we did 3 each, right? 3 active, 3 retired, and they don't have to be strictly like you don't have to pick left field, center, and
No.
right. Just 3 outfielders.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want my 3 active?
Yes.
All right. So there's an obvious one here. Mike Trout's the best player in baseball, and he's probably going to be the best player of all time. I mean, if I had to put money on it, I would put him as the best player of all time. It's insane. Number 2 for me is going to be Cody Bellinger, a guy we saw way too much in a good way when he was on the Tulsa Drillers. I mean, you could obviously tell that guy was going to be an absolute star in the show. And then my third one, the guy who really broke out last year is Juan Soto for the Nationals. Juan Soto is sick. So those are my 3.
Okay, interesting because I might have Soto somewhere else on my DH, but
Yeah.
my 3 outfielders, Mike Trout, definitely. Cody Bellinger, definitely. And people say Cody Bellinger's a first baseman. I've seen Cody Bellinger make diving plays in center field. You can put this guy anywhere.
Yep.
And in left field, or in my third outfield spot, Christian Yelich.
Nice.
So what he's been doing with the, obviously, MVP of the league, but what he means to the Brewers, I mean, that kid is just phenomenal talent. So those are my 3 active, Yelich, Trout, and Bellinger.
I've got 2 quick ones. I know we got to keep moving, but 2 just quick little stats on Mike Trout that are just awesome.
Yeah.
He's 3-time AL MVP, 4 second-place finishes. So 7 years he's been top 2 in MVP finishes, which is just insane. And then the other one is in his weakest offensive season, right? 36 home runs, 111 RBIs, which led the league, 115 runs, which led the league, and a 939 OPS. Mike Trout's the best player in baseball, and the Angels do a terrible job of marketing him.
They really do. And Mike Trout's played in 1 postseason series?
Yeah, against the Royals, and they got swept.
Ouch. Okay, by the way, Frizz has Trout, Bellinger, and Ronald Acuna in there, which is absolutely a good pick. Acuna, a very young, talented player for the Braves, although I don't know. He ticked me off in that NLDS, so to hell with him. Your 3 retired players who you're going with in your outfield. This is going to be a tremendous list.
Yeah, so the best player of all time. I'm going to say this again. The best player of all time, Barry Bonds. Mm-hmm. He is the best player of all time. Number 2 would be Ken Griffey Jr. And then 3 for me, I don't think you'll have this one. 3 for me is going to be Ichiro.
Wow. Interesting pick.
Yes.
Sure. Look, that's outside the box. I didn't even think about Ichiro, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I definitely went Bonds. I definitely went Ken Griffey Jr. I agree with you. Bonds was just a different level. But my third outfielder is Larry Walker. Mm-hmm. I'm so happy he's getting into the Hall of Fame. He was so good with the Colorado Rockies. I mean, that tandem of him and Todd Helton, they were just good. Yep. And he's got a cannon of an arm in right. Love what he brings to the game. So he was my pick as my third outfielder for my all-time picks. As for Frizzy, he had Bonds, Willie Mays, and Babe Ruth. Hard to fight those, but again, sticking with the players that we've seen to kind of limit some of them.
Yeah, Frizz is older than I thought. If he's seeing Bond or Mays and Ruth,
he's nice. Vintage. He's like a fine wine.
Yeah.
He is defending himself as saying that he was told that this is all time, which is true. This is true. We changed some of the rules late last night. Okay, DH, your active DH. Mine's Juan Soto. I sort of broke that early, but I'm going Juan Soto at DH.
Right, and then so I picked Yelich as my DH. So
okay.
Yeah, so we're on the same page there.
Wow. So out of our active players, we were on point with Pujols, Arenado, Yelich, Trout, Bellinger, and Soto. That's pretty ridiculous. And, I mean, our subs are LeMahieu for Merrifield, Javi Baez for Adalberto Mondesi, and my homer pick, which is Molina, for JT Realmuto. Again, I think couldn't go wrong. Those would be my second choices on all those. That's wild.
Same. Yep.
And your all-time DH. This is my outside-the-box pick. You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Barry Larkin. Barry Larkin for the Cincinnati Reds. Hall of Famer, of course. Guy was a tremendous athlete, great shortstop. Obviously stole a bunch of bases, but he was a complete hitter. He hit the gaps, he hit home runs, and he got on base. Barry Larkin's my pick as my all-time DH.
So for mine, and Nate really liked that pick. I like how you thought outside the box there. So for mine, whenever I think of DH, I just think of like power. I went away from that. And so I thought of just best, the hitter that I would pick. It's Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn for me, if you're looking at just a hitting standpoint, it's got to be him. A career 338 hitter, which is just, we're not going to see that again. And a guy who never struck out and just put the ball in play and made a living just getting on base. So Tony Gwynn would be mine.
Man, I feel we could do 2 hours just talking about all these players. I know you've got like a litany of stats over there.
Yeah.
All right, but let's move on to pitchers. We did 3 retired starting pitchers and 3 active starting pitchers. I'll just go first with my 3 active starting pitchers. It pains me that I'm not – I don't know how I feel about this list, but I went with it. Jack Flaherty, bit of a homer pick. Love the kid. I think he's going to win a Cy Young. Jacob deGrom, if he had any run support or anybody around him with the New York Mets, he's already won NL Cy Young, twice? And so he's a beast. And Max Scherzer. I want the Bulldog going for me, even though I grappled between him and Strasburg because Strauss was the World Series MVP. But Scherzer, he's got some Mizzou ties from St. Louis. Again, homer pick, but Scherzer's a Bulldog.
Yeah, I was looking at this list and just like I looked at online like the best pitchers in baseball, and I think it's pretty obvious who they are right now, and there's not much debate. I have deGrom and Flaherty on mine. I don't think that's a homer pick at all with Flaherty. That guy is sick already, and he's going to have a great career. Hopefully that's in St. Louis for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And the place where I differed, I did not have Scherzer. I had Garrett Cole. Hurt me a little bit because we could talk for hours about how pitiful the Houston Astros are. But Garrett Cole's away from them, now on the New York Yankees. He's clean shaven, clean slate. Let's see what he can do. But Garrett Cole's my pick.
All right. For your 3 retired starting pitchers, you go first this time.
I don't know why it fires me up that just talking about these 3 guys, but Randy Johnson, okay, Pedro Martinez, and then my favorite pitcher of all time, Greg Maddux.
You know what? Look, it pains me to leave Pedro and Randy off my list, but I went Chris Carpenter for a lot of the same reasons why I went Flaherty. This guy will give you everything he's got on 3 days rest to go pitch Game 7 on a elbow that might not work. Greg Maddux. How can I not go Greg Maddux with you? And I went Doc Halladay. And I went back and forth between Pedro and Halladay on this. And then right when we got off the phone, Major League MLB Network was doing like a feature on Doc Halladay. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, the dude, he was too good. So those are my 3. Again, I think you could go back and forth on a lot of these names.
Was it with Roy Halladay? Did he have a postseason perfect game, or was it just a no-hitter?
He had, I believe it was a no-hitter.
Okay,
but because I'm pretty sure Larson is the only pitcher to throw a no-hitter in the World Series, but this was in the postseason.
Right.
But
I love that pick.
Who does that?
I love that pick. I didn't even think about that pick, and I still like my top 3, but if I were to make a top 5, I think I'd definitely throw Halladay in there. Nice pick.
Okay, I took some liberty here. Your active closer and your all-time retired closer.
All right, I'll just give him back to back. Active, so I just went. This guy I think is insane, and he actually doesn't close all the time. So for me, it's Josh Hader. The guy has wicked stuff.
Still, you're no concern over Hader. Last year, he got hit a little bit.
Yep, still going with Hader. Yeah, you're right. He did, but the guy's stuff is sick. And I looked around the league. I wasn't going to pick Kirby Yates, but maybe that's because I don't see the Padres very much. And for me, Hader is the guy.
This was another way for me to get another Cardinal on my list.
Yeah.
And I went Adam Wainwright because you know what? He closed out the 2006 World Series. He came up as a closer, and that's who I went with. I think still to this day, if you asked Waino to go close out a game, he'd do it for you. And that Uncle Charlie still has some bite to it. He might throw 85, but we saw what Waino did last year. I mean, some spectacular performances when it really mattered. And then this is obvious. All-time best closer, without question, Mo.
Yeah, no, there's no debate. No Trevor Hoffman. Nope, get out of here. Nope, it's Mo. And I got a quick little story about him. Mariano Rivera was such a personal guy, too. He's still alive. Mariano Rivera is a personal guy. I remember going to a game when he came to Kansas City. I can't remember what year it was, but I'm outside with my friends waiting for autographs just as a young kid for the Yankees. Didn't get any because it's the New York Yankees, but one player came out to sign, Mariano Rivera. And there were probably, 50 to 60 people out there. Half of them were Hispanic speaking people. And I was younger, so I didn't know much Spanish. As soon as he comes out, it's like they knew he was coming. They all started yelling, Mariano, por favor, por favor. Signed every one of their autographs and everyone else's autograph that was asking for it. I was so starstruck, didn't ask him for an autograph.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you didn't get Mo's autograph?
Nope, and I easily could have.
Oh, my goodness.
Haunts me.
And your manager that you want to roll with this squad, who are you going with?
All right, so active. We talked about this the other day. Bob Melvin is my favorite active manager. I think he's awesome, does the most with the least. But my manager that's retired, I went with Bobby Cox. Bobby Cox is the captain of the ship. He's got 2,504 wins, 56% win rate, 4-time manager of the year, 2-time World Series champion. But the best stat, he has the most ejections of all time. He's going to bat for his guys, and he's coming for you. 158 ejections, 3 postseason ejections, 161 total. Bobby Cox, captain of the ship.
Man, all right. I love the picks. No Ned Yost. Can't even give an ode to Ned. But
Yeah.
I'm going Mike Schilt as my current and Tony La Russa as my retired manager. And those are definitely homer picks.
You had a lot of homer picks, partner. I knew that happened.
That's just called being a Cardinals fan. It's in your DNA. You got to be a homer. Johnny, we did it. It's 10:29. We fit it all in 29 minutes. I know we could have kept going, but I love the picks. This is fun, and I look forward to our segment next week.
On my parting note, can I just hit you with like maybe 1-2 Barry Bonds stats before I go? All right. From 2001 to 2004, Barry Bonds had more intentional walks, 284, than any other team combined. The second place team was the St. Louis Cardinals with 260. So Barry Bonds had 24 more intentional walks over that stretch than any other team. In 2004, Barry Bonds hit 369 with a 609 on-base percentage, best of all time. Slugged .812, had 232 walks, best of all time, 120 intentional walks, best of all time, and he had more intentional walks than the second place person had total walks. And finally, from 2001 to 2004, Barry Bonds played in 573 games. In those games, he reached base in 539. That means in 94% of the games for that stretch, he reached base. Barry Bonds is the best player of all time, and I don't want to hear any arguments about Babe frickin' Ruth, okay?
Amen to that. Barry Bonds. Should he be in the Hall of Fame?
100% should be in the Hall of Fame.
Johnny, great stuff. Love the passion. And obviously, I like your picks because most of them aligned with mine. Good stuff, partner.
Hopefully, once I get off the phone here, you'll get some callers and they can yell at you, Barry Bonds.
Email me, please. Yeah. Email me.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Johnny.